because she counted, because that's her job. I've published 178 books, and I'm writer and also publisher of Wordfire Press, and I'm also a professor I teach a grad program in publishing, and we just do a million things, and you can't keep track of it all. So we're both of us, and we're both writers, but we've kind of, well, we'll get into more detail, but we've kind of separated out that I love to write all the time, and she doesn't love to write all the time, so it makes more sense to let her do the stuff that I don't like the business and everything, and the websites and the... Anyway, this is Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Mesta, and we've been at this about 30 years. My master's degree is in business administration, so business was always where my head was, and I loved the creative side too, and inveterate reader, and we met because I read one of his books, and it's a long story, but the long and short of it is we meshed pretty well and do cover each other's strengths and weaknesses.
And while I wake up every morning being very happy that I'm waking up married to this person, I don't do it at 5 a.m. That wouldn't be very, I wouldn't be very happy if that happened. So we just, 2 months ago, passed our 30th wedding anniversary. Okay. Larry and Kat, what are you at?
35, 36.
35? 35 or 36? You're supposed to know, Larry.
I know.
Danielle and...
If you do it every week or so, you're safe.
Yeah. Danielle, Dakota?
I think we're 9 years.
9 years, yeah.
Yeah.
9, and Jonathan?
10 years.
10 years, okay. I'm actually going to start with a story about why this became such a great thing for us, and then I'll let you guys tell similar stories, I hope. So I published my first, I think, 4 or 5 books, and they were kind of mid-list. Trad published. This is back in the 80s. Trad published. They were paperback mid-list books. I was like science fiction fan, and I was going to be a writer, and nobody taught me how to do any of this stuff. And I wore Star Wars T-shirts to big award ceremonies, and I had no social skills because I was a nerd who got books published. I had no career planning. I had no business sense. I kind of I knew how to tell stories, but I didn't know how to write stories that lots of people wanted to read. I wrote my own Angry Young Man books, damn it, and just did it. And they were critically acclaimed, which means I got good reviews and nobody bought them. And then I met Rebecca, and she really likes the movie My Fair Lady, and she decided that I needed a complete social makeover. And she went through I remember this day, she went through my closet and just went, oh, no, and pulling all this stuff out. And then she started explaining you have to look at this as a business and plan your career, and you have to, don't just write a book and hope somebody wants it. She really started taking me on as her project. In fact, she had a book that she's always wanted to write, basically the similar thing called The Nerd Whisperer. And she came in and said, I want to make you a millionaire by the time you're 30. And she's the one that just entirely that's why I wear nice clothes now. She really did the whole branding and all that kind of stuff. And she wanted to be a writer too, but she doesn't like writing as much as I do. She wants to be in my halo effect, I think, but she has to create the halo effect in order for that to happen. So we as a team have turned into something that I would have been blundering around, and I'd probably still be a mid-list author if I hadn't given up by now. So having that extra person to really focus on the stuff that I wasn't doing changed everything for my career, and that was 30-some years ago. So I'm going to dump that one on Jonathan and Jynafer. What's your story? How did you get? How do you synergize each other?
So Jonathan started, he knew he wanted to be an author, and when we got married, he was in sales and management, correct? So ta-da, surprise on me when he's like, nope, I'm actually want to be an author. I've been in disguise. So, but we supported it because I was doing exactly what I wanted to do at my job. So we, did the whole thing. I mentioned the querying, and then he mentioned a couple years later, after getting picked up by a boutique-sized publisher, hey, there's this whole self-publishing thing going on, and he looked into it, and we started to dabble, and then it wasn't until 2016 or 2017 at the first one of these that we really understood what it could look like. And so that's when we took my experience. So I wasn't the creative side at the ad agency. I did the client services and strategy. So I knew enough on like Photoshop to be really dangerous. If you saw any of the old covers, it's very dangerous. But to understand the mentality of marketing, of branding him, of branding our company, and to be able to take a step back from the love or passion of a book or writing to, like what you were saying about Rebecca, is like, let's look at this a little more holistically and long term, what we're going to do with this. So that's where I stepped in, and I still remember we were on vacation. Our daughter was like 7 months old, if that. And we were in Hawaii with some friends. And before we were going to go down and meet up with them at the pool, I was like, oh, I need to put up some ads. I think we have one of our books coming out. So here I am in Hawaii, the big shutters open, overlooking this amazing view, sitting there doing Facebook or Amazon ads as like my husband and our baby are getting ready so we can go to the pool. And I was like, is this how it could be? I'm in. I'm totally in. And that's where we're like, okay, let's make a pivot and let's make a go at this. And anything else?
I think you did a great job.
All right, the end.
So our story is a little bit where Dakota jumps and then I catch up. But you kind of need that in a relationship in general where you balance each other out. But it's been great to have Dakota as the idea man, the creative, and then I can figure out the rest. So our story is... really starts when Dakota was writing a book. It was always something he wanted to do. He took a creative writing class to sort of solidify whether he was doing it right. That did not turn out well, and the teacher slapped down a paper in front of him and said, "You will never make any money off of your writing." Oh.
She said, "No one will ever read anything you write." To be fair, she was not allowed to grade my papers anymore because the dean had to intervene.
So, great experience. But then sort of, out of spite and just wanting to get it out there, he hit that button on KDP, came to me and said, "Hun, I published a book." Oh, okay. So
Wait.
we've got to do better cover. We've got to do editing. And he said, no, it's never or it's now. So that's just sort of our relationship. He's the one who takes us to that next level, whether I know about it or not. But it always works out because we have a great give and take with communication. And like he talked in our introduction, we definitely balance each other out with strengths. So he's that one kind of pulling us to the next level. I'm sort of following along, but that's where it works because he's that idea man, and then I handle the details.
A good analogy in this is rock climbing. I would be the guy going. I would be the guy going straight up the rock wall, and she's coming along and jamming those, like slamming those hooks into the rock wall, so that if we do fall, we only fall a little bit.
You notice she passed that right over and handed it to me. Nobody has mentioned the most important thing about being married as a writer, and that's that you can be writing instead of out in the saloons trying to get lucky. I started writing a ways after our honeymoon, and Kat came along looking over my shoulder, and she'd never written a word. She looks over my shoulder and says, "I can do better than that." And after 25 times the bestseller list, on the New York Times bestseller list, I guess she has done better. We weren't blessed with conferences like like 20 books. But we did go to every writer's conference that we could find. Kat picked up an agent at one, and both of us did. I got the agent because she got the agent. Let's be frank here. But we sold our first books 6 weeks apart. She beat me by 6 weeks, although I had written one book before the book that actually sold. And she, of course, was smart enough to write for women who were buying 80% all mass market books at the time. So she started out making more money and just kept doing it. I finally got mad and made a movie this year because I couldn't catch her.
One of the nice things is you can travel together. I think that, and your life sort of is together. You know what I mean? It's like you have friends that write, so you have the same friends. I mean, it's really makes your life kind of a mesh together well, I think. And then in our case, like these guys, I tend to be the more stable one, and he's the crazy one. I mean, yeah, you don't say all of a sudden, look, Hollywood doesn't want my book, so I'm going to make a movie. I'm like, oh my God. But then I thought, well, I said, it's you go, just try to stay on the budget of some sensible amount.
So let me
use your own money that you got hit out. Don't let it
So let me just kind of distill this a little bit. So Kat and Larry, you're both writing books.
Correct.
And Dakota and Danielle, it's only Dakota writing books. And Jonathan, Jynafer, it's only Jonathan writing books?
I have written. We have a co-write in the wings, but for all intents and purposes, Jonathan is the author.
And Rebecca and I both write. She's a New York Times bestselling author in her own right, an award-winning author, but doesn't write nearly as much because I think she's focused more on the business end, but she's still writing. So, well, no, I mean, look, I write 12 books a year.
Kevin has an illness in his blood that makes him write. He loves writing. He loves the experience. I love the experience of having written. To me, writing is torture. I do it, but it's torture. And then I just love that rush afterwards.
Right. Well, but also, and this is one of the things as indie authors, if you're doing it right, you're hiring a professional editor to go over your stuff, right? I don't know if it's actually cheaper or not, but I married my professional editor. And she is honestly better than any other editor I've ever had from a regular traditional publishing house. Like, they'll send me back a book and go, oh, Kevin, this is great. You knocked it out of the park. And she says, not so fast. And she'll go over every line and mark every single thing. And I have a page from one of my award-winning manuscripts, by the way, where she crosses out a whole page and says, Bantha Poodoo. So the books are better after she goes through. Anyway, so having that extra person to bounce ideas off of, to get sanity checks, and I know Rebecca wants to talk about this because, like Dakota, I'm often the big idea guy, and I think we're going to get a poster made of it to put in our offices, because my phrase around the office is, how hard can it be? And I often will use my force of personality to make us do something that doesn't always turn out to be the best idea. And I think Rebecca wants to talk about that.
Yes, sometimes he'll come up with a great idea because he was born knowing how to create ideas, just looking at something and go, what if? And couldn't we? And a lot of times what he chooses or says what if about in a business sense means like hundreds of hours of work for me and tens of hours of work for him. And I sort of go, no. And we have had times when he said, well, you're just going to have to figure out how to do it. And that actually was not a good move. It might seem like, yes, we love each other, we support each other, but when he committed me to something that my plate was already full and it more than doubled my workload, it didn't work, and we didn't have employees who knew how to do that either. And so that was one of the rockiest years of our marriage, I think, when he overcommitted me on behalf of an idea. So
you're the filter.
So I'm a filter. I'm his sounding board, and when my sound is ouch, he knows to stop now.
Well, and honestly, you might not think this because we're here, we're doing all this stuff. In retrospect, one of the things that we did that we're kind of big and well known for is we're Wordfire Press. We published 450 books and 120 authors, and we're in all platforms, and we got all this stuff. That was one of the dumb ideas I never should have done. Not the publishing part, the dumb idea part was, hey, let's get a bunch of other books by other authors who are friends and publish their books. That is way harder. The first time we started doing royalties, I literally said, how hard can it be? You just add them up and divide things. And this was before like we had spreadsheets or anything. So I was literally at the kitchen table looking at printouts and adding up columns of numbers. And yeah, that was, if I could go back in time, I would publish Kevin books. I would publish my own books. But doing the other authors and contracts and royalty statements, and well, you know, we do publish Frank Herbert and Alan Drury, and Alan Dean Foster. We do some really good stuff, but taking on new authors, and then you got to deal with damn authors. Anyway, Danielle, tell us about some crazy ideas that you managed to deflect.
I don't think I've managed to deflect any.
Oh, that you should have managed to deflect.
Mostly it's just playing catch up. I love him to death, and he would never do anything to hurt us or do anything to affect our relationship. And that's key. We put our relationship first, business second. Do you have something to say?
Tell them about the 2020 initiative.
I don't remember. Oh. So it's playing catch up, and he has learned to kind of approach me with a model essentially. So he published a book without telling me. He started a business kind of without telling me. But so we learned early on in our marriage that we needed to have a plan moving forward in order for our marriage to be first and our business to be second. And that was for the idea man to approach me with a model, essentially, like a business plan that was detailed for the big idea that he had. Because a lot of, you know, if you're a detailed person in the relationship and you have the creative on the other side, they're coming at you with a ton of ideas, and you feel like you're drowning with how to manage it. So he started taking on that responsibility of just sort of putting the business plan together and then giving it to me to handle. So, but he did come up with this great idea with 2020 vision, where then he had branded glasses, Dakota Kraut glasses, that then he gave out to his fans every month. Like, you won a pair of glasses.
They're prescription, like
prescription glasses,
prescription
or sunglasses.
And transition lenses, the whole shebang.
And it worked out really well, but at first I was like, oh, that's so dumb. Nobody's going to want that.
And then 4,000 people signed up.
But he knew his audience. He knew his brand is puns, jokes. So he knew that this would fit in the 2020 vision. Then you got the glasses with the 2020 vision. So it's a lot about trusting. And so no, I don't think I've ever been talked out of anything, because I just know that he has the best overall vision, that I don't excel at that. But he has become really good at sort of sharing those steps for me to accomplish that overall vision he has.
I'm going to expand on that a little bit. And the reason for this is, the reason for getting good at doing that is that what I used to do is just run over and say, hot potato. And hot potato, just like throw it at her, like from a distance, really, really hard. And I'd say, hey, here's the thing we're going to do. And she goes, okay, how are we going to do it? And I would go, no, I said, let's figure it out. And then I would vanish for 12 hours to write. And she's like, but wait, we're committed to this now. And so I've learned that what I need to do is I need to have a whole thing like, what to expect, what are the steps that we're going to take to get there, and the time commitment that it's going to require. And if I do all that, it does two things. It shows her that it's manageable and that I've thought it through. And the second thing is it shows that I've thought it through to the point that I actually am willing to put effort into it. And there are many times when you might have a really great idea and you're just not willing to put effort into it. And it's very easy to tell if you can put it down as a document that they can go through and show step by step that you want this. There's a really good shot that she's going to go for it. But if I'm not going to do that, she's going to be like, sounds like you don't really care about this. Yeah. Yeah.
You got to talk.
I don't do this stuff almost never. Not good.
You know,
Like whose idea was it to make a movie? I mean, how did that come out?
You know, Hollywood forgot to come calling. So I said, what the hell? And I had...
His wife said, you're paying if you do this thing.
I know that I'm on something good if she says, what are you, nuts? And rolls her eyes. I love that big eye roll. I've learned to really endear to it. But we've kind of did break up our responsibilities. In 1985, when I said I'm going down to this class to learn to write HTML, she looked at me again and rolled her eyes, and then I hand wrote our web pages, okay? And she said, what are you, nuts? Again, and that's one that worked out. Now, there have been a few that didn't work out, and we're not going to talk about those. But she's really good about doing things like paying the bills and keeping our credit up and all that good side of the business that I've never been very good at. I am more creative in some ways, i.e. the movie. And, I did it by just putting my nose down and my tail up and work. I mean, I made all the mistakes in the world. Luckily, I didn't make expensive mistakes. And the next movie's going to be a lot cheaper and hopefully better. We'll see. I hope you all get to look at Eye for Eyes coming out about Christmas time with luck.
Or a few months after.
That's the practical side again.
I'm always the practical one. But you know the cool thing is when you have somebody like Dakota, and you guys haven't talked yet, but that is maybe a forward thinker. It challenges you and keeps your life interesting. I can only say I've had one of the more interesting lives of any human being because you don't expect him to come in and say, you know what, I'm sick of writing these books. I think I'm just going to make a movie, and you're like, oh, you've got to be kidding me this time, right? I mean, but it's always been that way. So I think they keep our lives the two back and forth. I'm much more conservative.
She was surprised to see John Savage and his wife show up at the house after John Savage has made 300 films.
A dull moment, right?
Jynafer, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think in any relationship there's like that balance because whether you're writing, building homes, making music, raising a family, whatever it is, like there's the two aspects that work together. And like even pre-pandemic, like we're together 24/7, right? And you're working together, you're living together, you're raising a family together, you're going out together, you're vacationing together, to know how to communicate, how to complement each other, and how to support each other because, there's the days when the writing or the outcome or whatever it is didn't go according to plan, where the business stuff, there is an ad that's just not taking, where the numbers are just starting to make you go cross-eyed or whatever it is, and to be able to be vulnerable to say to each other, like, today's not the day. You could just read each other and to support each other in that. But one thing I will just say is sort of counter to what we've heard so far for us is while Jonathan may have a crazy idea, but it's always in a discussion. We create space to say, like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm planning. We have business meetings because a date night is not a business meeting. right? Okay, that's nice. I support you. He laughs because that was like, it's the thing. Are we having a date night or is this a business lunch, right? And I think that's important because as authors, your minds are always going. You got it in your blood, in your mind. It's in every fiber and atom of your being, like to tell those stories and to write this and to come up with these concepts, to see them, playing out in your mind as you're getting ready to hit the keyboard again. And it's like, I need you with me for a moment. He's very accessible to the readers and to the network. Like his networking is off, in my opinion, and I've worked with, C-suite level people at Fortune 500 companies. Like his networking is off the charts because he cares about people so deeply. But when it's family time, put the phone down. Are you present? Is there someone that needs something? And so to be able to communicate that, I think, has really enhanced just our whole platform, our whole business, our whole relationship together, especially now that we have 2 little ones, right? Because we don't want to have that glowing screen in front of us every time. We want the big glowing screen with Bluey on it. So, right? Did you want to comment on
Just I feel like we're having like a really self-discovering time of couples therapy right now. I feel really good about our relationship. Right? Everybody, I feel like we're doing a good job up here. No, I always want to be the leader that leads from the front. I don't want to ask other people to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. So when we started getting to Germany, I told John, I'll find the translators, I'll set everything up, I'll set up the system, and then maybe you can help me monitor it. We did the same thing when we just launched in France. Same thing, I'll set up the system. Howard Hughes's father, I might get the details wrong, but Howard Hughes's father created drilling equipment to drill down to the oil. So I feel like whenever we're opening up a new stream of income, if we can just create a system to drill down to that oil, and then we can just plug these books into the system, so like German translations, French translations, let's create the system, and then let's drop these books into the system and follow it all the way through. And then Larry's ahead of us by probably a good 6 months. We just raised $70,000 for our TV show. So we're doing a space western. So Larry and I have been talking, and he's been a great guy, a wealth of information that I've been able to learn from already. So that's one of the things that we talked about. I was like, let's do it. Every time I talk to an author about, what's their plan to go to a film, their plan is, I'm going to wait to see if Hollywood knocks on the door, and then they laugh about it. And I'm like, I'm taking this seriously. I'm not trying to wait for somebody else to give me permission. One of my favorite quotes is from The Greatest Showman. They can't keep us in the cages if we learn how to make the keys. Something like that. So let's learn how to make the keys.
And I've been experienced enough in my ad agency job, and then we live in Southern California, so it has worked out. And it was one of the plans of how are we going to make this happen? And there's going to be the knowns, and there's going to be the unknowns, and there's going to be the knowns that go out the window. So, and then because we have that foundation of no expectations, the expectation of no expectation, and communication, we'll be able to be like water and push our way through that.
Well, Jynafer, you really kind of led into what I was going to talk to next, because we're talking about splitting business and writing and business and creative stuff, or big ideas and controlling the big ideas. But as couples and we're writers, we write all the time, or we talk about writing all the time, or we talk about publishing all the time, and all day, every day, this is our lives. That's what we do. We sit there and we don't talk about football or things. We talk about writing, or what project I'm working on, or what conference we're going to. And how do you, instead of business and creative, how do you balance your writing life with personal life? How do you separate it? Because we don't necessarily have a personal life that's separable from our stuff. And I remember, for me, well, she has said sometimes, why don't we ever just take a day off? And my response is, well, what's the fun in that? and it's different people, different attitudes, and how do you make it work so that you divide up family time, couples time? Danielle, you said about marriage first and the business second. That's something that you need to balance, because if you have two type A people who are writers, publishers, that's all you do all the time. So I'm going to let Rebecca speak to that, because she'll probably kick me under the table or something.
Wait, what was the question?
balancing personal time or not balancing it?
Well, no. What I thought it was going to be when we first got married and what it turns out to be is kind of different because theory is one thing. Like, before you have kids, you know how to be an awesome parent. And then when you have a kid, you go, oh, no, I've got to make some adjustments. This doesn't work like I thought it did. And so it's kind of like that with a marriage and creativity and balancing personal. He needs to get his creative stuff out of the way. Otherwise, he gets really grumpy. He wants to let the creativity flow. And so we discovered that one of the ways to balance personal and family was that every day, whether it was our anniversary or Christmas or whatever it was, he gets a couple of hours in the morning to throw his creativity onto the page or go out for a walk and dictate something. And then he can be really personable and outgoing instead of introverted and grumpy. And if I don't let him do that all day long, you can see this little alarm clock going off in his head going, I need to write, I need to write. So that was an adjustment we had to make. And we also had to find times that we could trade off so each other could get whatever creative stuff done, where he'd have to...
Hotel Anderson.
We have something we call Hotel Anderson, which means it's as if you're checked into a hotel somewhere and you're just working and meals are brought in and you work until you think you're done for the evening. You go to bed when you want to and so on. And we each have days when we say, I need Hotel Anderson. The other person makes adjustments, but we also have dates and we have grandkids that we have to take places and real life.
You guys kind of talked about that already. Dakota,
I think for us, it's kind of a constant struggle because, like Kevin said, the business is your life. But we, throughout the years, have tried different methods, and when we realize that one isn't working, we adjust. So we actually had this moment like a couple of weeks ago where it was like, we haven't spent enough time on our personal side, on our marriage side. The business had become a priority, and I think you're always going to kind of have that flux where it's marriage, personal, and business, and then you have to kind of refine your method to make sure that the marriage and the relationship is the top. So we constantly adapt our plans to make each other a priority. And so when we head back after this conference, we've decided every Thursday night is date night. Regardless of where we are, what we're doing, we need that time to not discuss business, to be husband and wife. So yeah, for us it's a struggle, but it's a good one and one that we're constantly adapting to and evolving to.
We lost the battle years ago. We just talk business all the time. We write all the time. We work all the time. We're workaholics. But we do. He gets up early and has about 3 hours in the morning. He gets up like at 5. But so he has some time to himself. That's one thing. And I'm more of an evening person. So, but yeah, we really pretty much gave into it. We like it. We both like it, so we do what we like. That's pretty much it.
We work completely differently. She has the door shut and dead silence. Before she came along, I raised 4 boys, and if there's silence, I'm worried that something bad is happening. So I've got the TV going and 2 computers running it at the same time. By the way, Kevin wasn't such a nerd as he'd like to make you think. We met in the 1990, at a National Association of Truck Stop Operators. How many guys do you know would be signing books at a National Association of Truck Stop Operators? He figured it out, so he was ahead of the curve, believe me.
I just wanted to add, that for us, what has become important is that the business is not our life. We both have our separate little groups of friends. We both have our separate interests. We are both very diligent about giving each other time to go to the gym because it's so important. If you don't have your health, if you don't have brain clarity, nothing good's going to get on the page, or nothing as good as you could do, and you can't be your best self. And we both we are committed to certain midweek meetings, Sunday time, and then we both have big interest in reading other things and nonfiction stuff separately, so our discussions can be about this new thing that I've learned, or here's a new something at the gym, or whatever it is, so that way when we do make that time for date night, it's not as though the only thing that we have to talk about or in common or of interest is the business, because really he doesn't want to hear about AMS ads, and I don't need to hear about the intricacies of what happened in space. It's fine. I believe you.
We're getting close to the end here. I think we only got a couple of minutes, and I actually want to be serious for a second and talk about the big elephant in the room that's kind of obvious that we haven't really stated. We're creative people. We're writer people. We do this stuff, and we are truly living the dream in that every writer wants to have a partner who gets them. And we have partners who understand that we're off thinking about space battles, or we're talking about what's the best way to serial kill a bunch of people, and where we get the editing, we get the genre, we get the telling stories, we get the I need to write for 2 hours on Christmas, otherwise I'm grumpy. That kind of thing is what writers dream about, having a partner who gets it. And if you have an unsupportive partner, it sucks. Rebecca and I both had practice marriages. I had, when we were young, I had 3 years, but it was why are you always writing? Why don't we just go bowling? Because I'm passionate about writing. Yeah, but she wouldn't read my stuff. She wouldn't do anything. And it's this soul-sucking, this is the person that I thought I was going to spend my life with who won't even read the short story I wrote.
You shouldn't have made her buy it.
So we stopped that one after a while, and I got the person who gets me. And having a partner that can be your partner creatively, business-wise, because this is not a career like being a bank teller or working at a grocery store. This is an all-consuming, even if you find time for your family, it is still an all-consuming, because as a writer, this is everything you are. Every aspect of your life is somehow connected to your writing. And to have a partner who gets that is worth its weight in Amazon ads or whatever you want. And that was heavy and serious, but it's almost done, but I really wanted to bring that up, that it is so important to have somebody who supports you rather than weighs you down. And there we go.
And not only to appreciate that, but as you saw on the panel, to let people know, I'm not the only person doing this. I have a huge support system. I couldn't do this without the people who are helping me, without my partner.
Good place to meet somebody supportive, by the way, is right where you guys are. If there's probably a lot of single people here. And
is there a 20-book speed dating? I think we should set that up.
Romance writer.
Yeah. Anybody else want to make a kind of a final comment? We're about at the closing time here.
I'll do a quick final comment. I feel like everybody here is capable of going after it, and you are capable if you're willing to put in the work. Discipline is a superpower, so just be consistent. It doesn't matter how far you get each day. If you're just consistent, you will get where you want to go. I promise you, we're all living proof of that.
He's taken. Thank you all.